Hi, and welcome to the Aspire Europe Agile Project Management Practitioner course. In this video, we're going to have a little look at products and priorities, during which we're also going to have a quick gander at the project lifecycle and how Agile compares with other views on this area. So if we take a generic project lifecycle, firstly, we need an idea. Every project's based on an idea. Maybe it's a kind of flash of brilliance in the mind of this project sponsor, or it's being insisted upon by customers. So we take that idea, and what's the first thing we do? We need to put a little bit of detail around it. So the next stage of any project is definition. Yeah, we define in more detail what the idea is, and then we think about what the outcomes need to be. You know, what needs to happen to this idea to make it business functional or become reality. Once we know what we want, and we generally talk about that in terms of outcomes and capabilities, we can then get down to the detail of designing it, yeah, around how are we going to create this thing? How's it going to come to life? What are the other changes that we need to have within the scope of our project or on the periphery of our project to make this thing a success? We then develop it, create what we call a capability. It can be software, it could be a skyscraper, whatever it's going to be. We build it, and then finally we deliver it. We give it to the customer, hand it over, they do all their quality testing and accept the project's been completed and they've got the capability they want. So that's an absolutely standard generic approach. So why don't we have a look and see how Agile Project Management views that? Well, they've used some different words, as you can see. They call PreProject. Well, that's basically getting the idea. Feasibility is really design and having a look and saying, is this really possible? So we got the best idea in the world, but is it really viable? Can we afford it? Do we think this thing's going to be the best idea we've ever had? Is it going to actually deliver the benefits, the performance changes we hunt? So that's where we do the feasibility. We also might want to do some testing, do it on a small area. Yeah, if I take, for example, when we decided to move into e-learning, we didn't suddenly go out and invest a huge amount. We got the basic software tools, we got some web space. I checked to see if the guys could do it okay, could they create things. And the first thing we created was a little courses. Yeah, we didn't go launching into MSP and Prince2 and all that initially. So with feasibility, could we cope with it, and what were the implications of having it in place? Once we've done that, once you've done that feasibility, you can set some foundations and go, well, whatever we achieve, we're going to need to have this. We're going to have that technology. We're going to need this software. We're going to need the customers to think like that. We're going to need some demand. So we've got to make sure we've got the foundations in place for a successful project. You're working in a big organization, you could have great ideas about digital solutions, but if you're in a bit of an organization that's a bit of a dinosaur and is miles behind the curve on its investment in IT, you're never going to be able to get there. And then we move into the next stage of the life cycle, which Agile PM sees as increments. So we go through evolutionary development. So we develop stuff, we assemble it, we check it works, and we deploy it into the business. So there you can see the ARD in the middle. Assemble, review, and deploy. Check it all works. Is it viable? Do the users like it? And then we can come to the end of our project. And you get to post-project, you look back and decide what you've learned. Okay, now you see that evolutionary thing. That doesn't have to be one evolution. What we're going to see in the next slide is a number of life cycles in which way this evolution or development can be deployed. Okay, and there we can see it. Now, we can do this as in the first diagram. You can see that's pretty much what we did before. So we set the foundations and we had a number of iterations of the development cycle till we get to the end. So that's a kind of classic. Now, interestingly, I'm quite sure if you're interested in Agile, you will have heard the term sprints all over the place. Well, actually, a sprint is just one of those evolutions. Okay, it's not included in the APM group model, but actually we call sprints. Each one of those little blue semicircles is a sprint. So the other options are you can have an organization with multiple sprints. So if we said each, in the first one, that project may only have taken a month. Yeah, but if you've got a 6 month, 1 year, 2, 3, 4 year, you're going to have to break it up in a different way. So you can see within each of the stages or increments, if we look at the second line, you can see there's 4 sprints within each increment, okay? And then that could be spread out over 4 weeks, 6 weeks, whatever it is. So you can have those cycles. And the key thing about that second module is you've got gates, you've got stop points where you say, have we met the minimal viable product? Are we going to keep going, or are we happy with what we've got? And then in the third module, you we're seeing more in stages. So within each stage, it hides all the little sprints within a stage. That's basically how it's working. So and the third module down, the third line down, it gives you more control, but more suitable for designing a longer term project. But all the way through, you're thinking about different ways of doing this. And it mentions Timebox, so we're going to have a little talk about that in a minute. There are a number of products created during an Agile project, and they can be grouped against 3 criteria. So we've got the business products, which are primarily the business case. We've got the solution products, which are basically the detailed design that the team need to deliver. And then we've got the management products, which are the things that the project manager looks after. So if we start at the top, the business products, each one of those is setting out terms of reference for the team, setting out what they expect the project to deliver. All right. So that is the driving force. And then the solutions team are coming up with possible models. They'll come up with prototypes, and you can see the cyclical arrow pointing back up to the business. There's really this tight connection between what the solutions team comes up with and what the business approves and changes and evolves. And so there's this dynamic evolution within that cycle, so that the business remains tightly in control or tightly engaged with what the solution is developing. And then you don't kind of ask for something and it turns out to be completely different. And then you can see the little grey jigsaw puzzle where you can see how the different solutions are coming through. It may be in an agile world, you produce some little things. Some people call them capability drops, where you put a piece of new software in that solves a problem, but it's part of a bigger solution that you want to get deployed. So you get fixes and that sort of stuff going on. Also at the business level, we've got the benefits documents and the assessments. So this is what the performance we want to improve. But because this tight incremental approach, we don't wait until the end to see if we've got it. We'll see if we're getting it. It's the end of each one of those increments or sprints. Have we got anything out of this? All right, so that's how all that fits together. And then the management products are really about the delivery plan. And that's where timeboxing comes in. Yeah, what can we achieve within this time box that's available to us? All right, there we go. That's basically your products. And when you're in the course, obviously, you're going to do a lot more reading about what they are. And when the test comes along, they're going to ask you about the contents of each of those products. So you need to be sharp. Now, one of the common problems for every project, whether it's agile or not, is setting priorities. So the old acronym of MOSCO is really important as part of this body of knowledge. So I'm sure you've come across this before, but if you haven't, it stands for must-haves, should-haves, could-haves, and won't-haves. You'll notice there's a thing called a MUS, M-U-S, minimal usable subset. Actually, I think for those people who are working actively in Agile in other areas, maybe calling this the minimal viable product. Okay, so if we take an example of a must-have, should-have, could-have, if you were buying a car, yeah, the must, and it's for a family of 4, The must-have is it's got to have space for 4 people, and it's probably going to have 4 doors, but that's probably a should-have. The most important thing is it's going to have 4 wheels. You're going to be able to get 4 people in there, and you're going to be able to get from A to B. That's the must-haves, the minimum viable product. Yeah, the should-haves could be, well, we'll have 4 doors so we can all get in, and we really need to carry some bags with us, so we need to have some boot space as well. Yeah, we might be a bit flexible about that. You know, it could be an estate car, it could be a saloon car, it could be a middle-sized car or a big car, but we should have that stuff, else it's probably not going to be fit for purpose. But they're not a must-have because we can cope with 2 doors. But then there's the could-haves, right? These are not essential, but we want to have them. Maybe heated seats, airbags, I don't know, air conditioning units, that kind of stuff. But a very powerful one is the won't-haves, yeah? Because in this car, you could be saying what we won't have is a sunroof all the way down, and it won't be a convertible. You know, but in the real world of delivering this stuff, being able to say won't have really helps clarify for people what they're getting. Because, you know, people can actually see a bunch of requirements, go, that's going to fit what I need. But if you've got stuff that you're definitely not doing, put it in there in the won't haves, and then you won't have unreasonable expectations of what's coming. So the good old acronym of Moscow is as important in Agile as it is in any other project methodology. Okay, and how do we use it? Well, there you can see in this diagram, we have the must-haves, and that's where we're going to put our effort. Yeah, well, it's saying in this example, typically no more than 60% of the effort goes into must-haves. Yeah, because the idea there is that you don't make the must-haves everything. Yeah, because there is a real danger that the should-haves moves into the must-haves. Yeah, and when you're talking to the customers, they're all trying to shift their own favorite little bit into there. So you need to be aware of that. So the must-haves are the absolute nailed-on minimum products. Yeah, I know we've called them something slightly different, but you'll probably be, if you're using this in the real world, you'll be calling it a minimum viable product. And then the could have. So if you look at this course that we're delivering, yeah, and the videos are not a must-have because we could have got accredited without the must-have. But for me, to make us better than everybody else, would at least have a should have. It's better than a could have. All right. And then over on the other side, what won't you have? Well, what won't you have in this course? You won't have access to all the other modules on Prince2 and all that sort of stuff. But we could have put it in, but they're not relevant, so you won't have them. All right. So that's basically how this works. Just a little thing, time boxing is a very popular term within this. Links to these things, the whole value of Agile and planning is staying focused. The shorter the horizon, the more likely you are to hit it. All right, so what we can see at the bottom there is how your project's built up. And you remember the slide earlier on where there was different cycles. What we're looking in this project is what we're calling 2 increments. And we've got 2 increments and 3 time boxes in each. An increment in this, it could be called a stage, when your time boxes could be called a sprint. There's different ways of working it. But this is quite classic project management here. Yeah, we're seeing a stage with some milestones in it, if you're used to that terminology. Not that much different. The only thing is it's tight. So each of those milestones is time bound rather than technical achievement bound. And as it's saying in the words there, a couple of weeks for each should be enough. Just as a hint, when we're developing our e-learning, we use about a week for a certain version of a product, and we always plan a week ahead, but you're looking for the weeks ahead to achieve other things, just as an example. A couple of other views on this. There's the DSDM view of the technology, which is really coming from the software side of things. So you can see they have time to kick off. They allow 10 to 20% of their effort scoping and having a look at it, and then they're working on it for 60 to 80%, and the last 10 to 20% is trying to bring this to a product. So yeah, the software developers could be doing all their work in the middle, and you might have the assembly team at the end building the product together so the customer can see something at the interface, and then we close out. And within at the end of that, you might have things that are left over, things that are missed, they go onto your issue log. And then in some forms of Agile, they start to become your backlog because you've got to the end of that time box. You've got 80% of it done, so you've met most of your minimal requirements, but actually maybe there's some missing, they go into the backlog. And to be honest, in planning, that's where some of the problems occur with Agile. Okay, and then there's a free-form time box where basically you've just got 2 weeks, see what you can do with no structure to it. Okay, so that's the end of this video. Hopefully it's proved useful. So we've covered a little bit on time boxing. We've reminded ourselves about Moscow. We've looked at some of the products, and we've looked at the Agile Lifecycle. So there's a whole lot more for you to learn when you actually get into the course, but hopefully this has set the context for you. So grab a cup of coffee, find yourself a comfortable space, and hopefully you'll enjoy the course.